Okay, so one of the more interesting things that I've noticed recently, as of the time of recording this episode, is how people seem to be taking a little bit more interest in the fact that a lot of men have stopped being particularly interested in dating. And it's something that has actually created conversations online to the point where some people are actually calling it an epidemic of sorts. And you know what? It's interesting because, granted, I don't really think people care about guys all that much, but the fact that men are not interested in dating and it's a conversation topic, I think is something that definitely needs to be looked into, which I intend on looking into now in this episode. But before I can do that, first of all, where are my manners? I should have started with an intro. Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is Sir Denver B. This is a shorter, less edity, no instrumentally version of the podcast where I basically air out some of my thoughts and discuss a couple of things that I feel should be discussed or that I haven't managed to discuss in my other episodes previously that I feel are particularly interesting. And, if they were lingering in my mind as well. Kind of also like that. And in this particular episode, it's simply the fact that men don't seem to be interested in dating, and it's an entire conversation piece. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like I haven't discussed this before. When the viral story of, men not going to clubs anymore was a thing and people were discussing it, I did talk about it. And I was going to talk about how, the club owners have noticed this because profits are down, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't really that. It was actually a woman who noticed it. So as a result, I kind of decided to look into the whole idea of men not wanting to get into the dating scene anymore. And to be honest, it's not like I really had to look that deep, because even as I was kind of getting into why it is men may not be interested in dating, the reasons were fairly apparent. It's just that I don't think people expected the effects to be this bad, or at least they didn't expect the effects to actually affect men as badly as they are right now. Now, all that said and done, I did come across a Reddit post where a guy was busy talking about how men are not interested in dating and why it might be a bit concerning. So I'm just going to read the post, which was titled "Men Not Interested in Dating," and then I can give my thoughts on the entire thing. So the story says, and I quote, "I was helping a mutual friend I share with my Kuzo move. Since I have a Golf R variant and it's long, I offered to carry his basic stuff, utensils and electronics. This guy has like 5 pocket pussies. I joked that he should find a wife and he just said, nah. 5 minutes and he's back to his PS5. For him, affection is something he can get for 3K and have a cuddle buddy for the night. He doesn't want the hassle of being with someone or committing. I'm honestly puzzled. The plan for most of us was to have a family by 30. I also don't feel it. Have your first child in university by 50, enjoy your money by 55, and travel the world at 60 with your wife. This guy is not even struggling. He's moving to a 2-bedroom in Kile so that one room can be his gaming setup. He can support a family easily. He just doesn't see the value. Meanwhile, there's someone in Shags with baby number 3 and baby number 1 who's been chased from school because of fees. The people who shouldn't be having kids do it by force. I mean, they come everywhere. And the people who should actually don't. Society has really lost affection, or maybe we've already gone the Europe way." End quote. Okay. Interesting post. But now, what are the reasons? Why do I think that men are not interested in dating? Because a bunch of people did actually bring up their own reasons behind this. Now, of course, there was obviously going to be the person who will talk about, that's the beauty of choice. He can choose to be with someone or not. And, that's okay. But now, when I get into the comments, one of the first comments that I saw was someone who said, and I quote, "It's not men that aren't interested in dating. It's a specific scope of men and women that aren't interested in dating. You pointed out the fellas in Shags, the demographic is different. Dating, getting married, getting kids, etc. means something different. It's not financial as for chaps in the city. You keeping a lass around is actually a loss. Getting kids is also a loss as far as money is concerned. And the idea of stepping away from the pleasures they've accorded themselves financially is a nightmare so it just doesn't compute. End quote. Then someone else decided to hop on, and there was a lady who said, and I quote, "I was just ranting to ChatGPT how most men I come across are just not interested in dating. No one actually wants to date these days, even myself as a woman. The thing that annoys me and disturbs me is how to manage ovulation days. Other than that, the concept of investing emotionally in other people is absurd." End quote. Which, all of those seem particularly interesting, but now someone else gave a much longer point, so I'll just try and read some of it. And he said, "Yeah, bro, it's bad. My first point, the patriarchy was destroyed, quote unquote. The plan you're talking about wasn't wholly ours. It's what we were told we should do. It wasn't just women who are forced to do stuff, but also guys. It's just that with men, you just do what needs to be done. We accept responsibility for ourselves and society. Now that we have a lot of individuality and we're not that committed to how society works, there's a divide of men. 1, guys want a family, and 2, guys who don't. Neither option is good or bad. My second point, which is probably a bit more crude, is that with the increase in escort and whore culture, a lot of men have become desensitized to women. The way women have been moving and talking the past 15 years, no judging, they can do them, has really killed the specialty they held in the eyes of men. The society objectifies women today more than ever. It's just that it's silent. Many young guys don't see like women are worth having around, and I think it's a conversation that we need to have. This is the primary reason clubs and events are filled with women and not men. At least 70% of the women there are looking for men. Unfortunately, men don't really want them." End quote. And I'll kind of not discuss the comments here anymore because I feel like the more of them will kind of range around these three. But now, with all of that said, first of all, the guy in shags coming everywhere, I don't think that's entirely accurate. There's a lot of guys in shags that are very faithful to their one wife. So instead of coming ever and having 5 different kids from 3 or 4 or even 5 different women, they have 5 kids from just one. So, there's that. Does it make it better or worse? Personally, I think it's better because, faithfulness and all. And I don't endorse infidelity. But with that said, as far as men not being interested in dating, not that most men aren't interested, a lot of men actually are. But for a good chunk of the ones who may not be interested in dating, I'll give a couple of reasons why I believe this is the case. First of all, for the first time in history, all right, men don't have to work to get their rocks off. Like, as a guy, for the first time in history, you do not have to put in effort to nut. Like, if you want to get your nut out and that's it, and you're horny, you can actually do it from the comfort of your home. You can do it actually from the comfort of just about anywhere. And it's not really that big of an issue because when you look at it, when it comes down to the idea of like sex and pleasure, it mainly involves 2 main organs, your brain and your reproductive organs, okay? So if you can put on some porn and beat your meat, you're good. So essentially, if I'm a guy and I'm horny and I want to get my rocks off, all I have to do is pick up my laptop or just turn on my computer, basically go to a porn site and I'm good. But even then, I can do one better and make it even easier. I can grab my smartphone and basically get into the internet and, use the same site and access the same porn, which is even easier. But still, I can make it even easier than that. I can hop onto X and provided I know which pages to look for, I can probably access the same amount of content, or at least I can probably access quite a bit of adult content, and I'll still be able to get my rocks off, alright? Or I can even make it even better and just hop onto Telegram, provided I've used one of these Telegram links where people are always trying to share videos, and I'll probably stumble into some and I will be able to get my rocks off from there. Even when you look at, how I'll physically be able to do that, there's, robotized or motorized toys that I can use on myself if I have the money and I'm really willing to go that far. Or if I don't want to do that, there's pocket pussies that I'll just use to manually get myself off. But ideally, if I just want to get myself off very quickly, my hand in some lotion is pretty good. Okay, so essentially, I don't need to put in that much effort just to get my rocks off. Back in the day, even though there were people who could try this, if you really wanted to get your rocks off, you were supposed to go and get a babe. All right, go get a girlfriend or go be with someone and try and hold off until marriage. Then once you're married, you're at least assured that you're going to be getting your rocks off using a babe. All right. Not that I'm looking at it as objectifying women, but I know that as I say this, it can sound like I am, but I'm not. I'm just speaking of one of the ways, or at least one of the reasons why guys will choose to get into some sort of a relationship. Then the second reason is the fact that people in general are just tired of dating. All right. This is men, this is women. I feel like this is probably the most universal reason as to why it is a lot of people aren't interested in dating anymore. And it's just the fact that the dating market has just been like shit for a couple of years. So depending on how long you've been in the dating market and how bad your experiences are, you can choose to get out of the dating market simply because you're tired of it very, very quickly. And also your tolerance level, the amount of bullshit you're able to tolerate and the kind of people that you meet that serve that kind of bullshit. So essentially, there's a lot of guys who've gone through it, and, especially with babes coming in with more and more standards, talking about red flags and shit, there's a lot of guys that just don't see the use of going out and dating. Then, now to add on to that, the other point is the fact that there's lowered influence from society due to the abundance and choice of money, or at least the abundance in choice and money. So you look at this example that this guy was giving, this guy is doing pretty well for himself. Him getting himself an apartment in Kileleshwa, that's a pretty good amount of money he's making, and especially if he's just going to get it so that he can have the extra room as a gaming room, dude is doing particularly well for himself. So even though you were to tell the guy, so you get married, first of all, the office isn't going to ask you to get married, especially if you work remotely. Then also on top of that, if you decide to pressure him because you're a part of his family, the guy can just cut you off and there's nothing you'll do. Back in the day, while people weren't as, rich and everything, and culture was still a little bit more prominent, the idea of community and being a part of society was a very, very important thing for most people. So it's not like you are trying to go against society by deciding that you're not going to settle down. So it's better if you just settle down for the sake of society than if you decide to not settle down and, you kind of make yourself an enemy of society. Nowadays, you can kind of get around that and still be at your place enjoying most of the luxuries without really having to associate with people. So, in my opinion, I feel like those are the three main reasons, or at least some of the main reasons why a lot of guys just have little to no incentive to go out and date, for those guys that have chosen to stop dating completely. Minus the other ones where it's like, I need to look for money, blah, blah, blah. But also, when I kind of think about it, like there was a time when someone actually gave a very general description of what dating is like for men. And when I read it, it kind of made sense why a lot of guys would see it as absurd. Because when you kind of think about it, and I say this not to make women look bad, but, for men to kind of understand, because this is like the reality for a lot of guys. Dating essentially is you going to try and convince a woman to become your dependent, at least to some degree, and basically become your responsibility for you to take care of them and utilize your resources to take care of them so that possibly in the future she can create other human beings that are dependent on you, are your responsibility, and you have to use your resources to take care of them. So essentially, it's like you're basically asking for a problem, which in turn will create more problems for you. Not problem in a bad way, but essentially just challenges, if you kind of think about it. So for a lot of guys, when you think about that fundamentally, it actually doesn't sound like a particularly great idea. Granted, if you oversimplify shit like that, even football itself doesn't make sense. But, like, who the hell's gonna do that, at least in front of guys? But essentially, a lot of what dating is for guys is a lot of sacrifice, and a lot of guys just don't feel like doing that, especially with a lot of the experiences that they've heard of or experienced today. So essentially, the only way that we could change that is if we actually try to create a bigger incentive to date than whatever other distractions are there for a lot of guys, which I'm not gonna lie, seems less than possible today, if anything. And to kind of conclude all of this, what I'm trying to say is choice is great, okay? I'm not saying that you having the choice to do it, you having the choice to date or not to date, what porn you'd like or anything. Like, choice is choice and it's not a bad thing. But at the same time, while having choice is great, it might actually be killing us in a sense. Not necessarily killing our, population numbers or anything of that sort, even though it might actually be doing that since, guys are not getting into the dating market, or at least some are withdrawing. But essentially, the fact that you not wanting to go and, get a potential partner might actually be as a result of these choices that you have at your disposal, killing your desire for partnership, which in and of itself actually needs to be looked at as a particularly serious thing. So up until the idea of the relationship is more enticing, I believe we're going to continue hearing of such cases, and if anything, they might actually increase. Although, then again, even as I say this, maybe I might be wrong. Maybe there's a ton of guys that are still into dating. Maybe you have a different form of feedback. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open on IG. It is at the breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the breaktime podcast. On X, it is at bagakadad. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.